about Deepfence. Deepfence has been around for roughly 3.5 years. We are a provider of a cloud-native security observability platform. Well, look at cloud as a continuum, really, Blake. It's not one modality. It's multiple modalities living side by side. So you've got Kubernetes, you've got serverless, you've got VMs, you know that, it's a continuum, really.
Right.
While we started as a container security company over a period of time, based on the customer feedback, we essentially broadened our focus to be looking at the entire cloud as a continuum. So yeah, that's what we do. Two parts of Deepfence. First part essentially is called product essentially. One of them is Apache. We do completely open source. Super excited to be launching it for the developers and operators today, called ThreatMapper. Think of ThreatMapper as the MRI scan for your cloud, Blake. You can visualize your entire cloud estate. You've got serverless functions, you've got AWS Fargate, you've got VMs, Kubernetes pods, all of it, all together. That's ThreatMapper for you. It essentially starts where the shift left leaves. Shift left hands off the baton to us, essentially, really, right? So you've got CI/CD. Let's say that you've got 1,000 vulnerabilities in CI/CD. ThreatMapper comes in at runtime, says, out of these 1,000 vulnerabilities, how many are really exploitable? How many of those packages, containers are getting traffic? How many of those packages are loaded in memory? And then distills down that number to 1 or 5 vulnerable, essentially, 1 to 5. And that's something manageable, you see what I'm saying? So that's the first part. The MRI scan for your cloud, ThreatMapper, that's what we're launching. It was around for a year, Blake, as a freemium product. We worked with community to sort of refactor it for scale, refactor it for using open source componentry, right? So yeah, that's what we're launching today.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. So it's, for many teams now, it's like deploy faster. So there's a rush to do it, but then what sort of gets lost is resiliency, and then also like the observability part of it, which this plays into, right?
Absolutely, Blake. Thing is, you're iterating so fast now. Gone are the days when you did one release every quarter, a monolithic Java app sitting in a data set. That's all gone, right? You're iterating multiple times a day, and then while you have CI/CD and shifts left there, but the sheer number of vulnerabilities, it's unmanageable. Looking at thousands. What do you do with them? How do you prioritize them, really? And what you really need to know as a developer, as an operator at runtime is what is going to hurt me the most when I put this stuff out of the product into the production, really, right? That's where ThreatMapper comes in picture. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you kind of have like the slogan shift left and secure right.
Absolutely. That's our motto. Yeah. Did you see our hoodies with those slogans? Shift left, secure right. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, because generally like security and everything only comes into play if there's an outage or something breaks.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of the tools, you're looking for something where you never get into that situation in the first place.
You have to start early. You have to be able to prioritize. It has to be woven in as part of the development process itself, which is what is happening with the shift left initiative. Yes.
And for a lot of companies today, so they're talking about with a lot of the shift just to cloud, what would you see as like one or two tips for them that they should keep in mind in terms of either an opportunity as a challenge, like, hey, I'm looking to do this. What are some of the ways that, like, one or two things we should keep in mind, and also how could Deepfence help me out?
Well, absolutely. If you look at the existing trends, right, concerns as well as trends, really, right? Let me talk about the concerns. Security, and even within security, misconfigurations followed by known vulnerabilities. These are the main concerns. Right? These are the primary attack sort of vectors, really, right? Deepfence helps you figure this out from CI/CD all the way to production, really, right? Like I said, it takes over when the traditional shift left, hands off the baton to it. Number one. Number two, observability, the biggest trend ever. You see what I'm saying? And I'm so glad that people are calling it observability. There is a logic behind it. You should be able to understand the internal system states of your assets, of your deployments, really, right? Observability, I think, is going to be a big theme going forward. And this is just not related to security, observability in general, right? So yeah, absolutely. Two themes for sure. And Deepfence essentially goes deeper into the security-related observability. We're not going broader, right? We're not doing APM and other things. We're saying all this observability lets you inspect things better, analyze things better. Yeah.
And for some of the developers out there today that sort of get hit with monitoring solutions and observability solutions, where do you see those two kind of like differing or intersecting?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question, essentially. Observability enables various use cases. Monitoring is one of them, right? Security is one more, right? And forensics yet another, really, right? So observability, I think, is a broader sort of a superset of some of these other use cases, is how I look at it. You can go very deep with one particular use case, which is what we're doing essentially. We're
Right.
going deeper. Think about it this way, right? And here is where I want to talk about our commercial offering, Blake, if that's
Sure.
the right moment. Essentially, think about. I spoke about MRI scan for the cloud, right? Which basically lets you measure the attack surface of your workloads in production. What do you do with this attack surface? That's where our commercial offering comes in picture, called Threat Striker. While the ThreatMapper code is always going to remain open source, Threat Striker essentially consumes these signals. It tells you, I know the pain point right there. Here is a remedy for that pain. So Threat Striker essentially is that runtime solution which takes this observability build, security observability build, takes look at runtime signals like traffic, looks at, we even do TLS decryption. So I'm saying, so we're saying you've never seen this stuff before. This is going to eliminate everything across the modalities, really. So you know the attack surface, and at runtime you looked at traffic, what comes in, what goes out, what changes, and you overlay these two. And then you have essentially not only observed your system properly, you've secured it, you've protected it live, right? So that's the whole thing. That's the whole sort of gamut of solutions that Deepfence provides.
Right. And so when you're looking at that kind of CI/CD and trying to get out to deploy faster, with the tooling that you have, are you seeing a small view of it, or are you seeing like the complete picture? If you're not seeing the complete picture, that's where we're probably going to see companies running into issues.
Absolutely.
Especially with everybody being remote.
Absolutely. So true. So true. It has to start from the beginning. If you look at the whole CI/CD cycle, you've got the left, which is where the dev test happens. You've got the center where you hand off things to ops, and then you've got the right where operations tooling comes in picture, really, right? So it's a defense starts, and the left of the center goes all the way to the right. That's where we start. And traditional shift-left initiatives, you see great companies like Snyk and such, they're on the left, further left on the developer cycle, like code, test, static analysis, that part of it. We take off where they stop and then take it all the way.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And just from your purview and perspective, are you seeing any other industry trends this year? It's a little bit different with the pandemic, more teams being remote. And so just the way that they're maybe companies are approaching things, but it's kind of interesting. From your insight, what are some of the other types of trends you're seeing as we get into close to 2022?
Well, great question. And you know what, I've been sort of following some of these trends, Blake, really. Keeping aside observability, which is the pretty broad field itself, I see confidential computing coming up, in a big way, in the sense things like, secure enclaves, Intel SGX, those kind of things. I think the time is right now for those kind of technologies to come in. That's happening. Serverless is certainly coming over, right? Oftentimes I see customers are directly skipping Kubernetes. They're directly jumping onto managed Kubernetes or AWS Fargate, which we have heard customers calling it stateful serverless. And then, of course, you've got functions. I think that's happening too, broadly. But I think, overall, ZTNA, of course, zero trust. It's happening in a really big way. Mainstream, in fact, I think,
Oh, very cool. And then for a lot of times we'll get with our audience, essentially people about to look for a career in the industry. So people maybe in middle school or high school today say, hey, this whole space looks so exciting. What are like one or two career tips you would give them for the people that are going to be start out and future people that could be using Deepfence or serverless?
That's an amazing question. In fact, I have one of my niece who got into cyber just because a lot of my friends are in cyber. So, and she's in high school. So I'm saying, well, absolutely. I think cybersecurity is a great field to be in. Cyber is going to be, some parts of cyber at least are going to be as sort of, they would be counted as basic literacy. I would even go on to say that, just like coding is basic literacy now, right? You have to have it.
Right.
And when you code, you create issues, right? And you need to be protected, essentially. That code runs somewhere. So I think cyber is going to be super, super foundational to education, going forward as well. Yeah.
Very cool. And then, so for Deepfence, out here at KubeCon, anything exciting at your booth? Anything else like that we should tell people about going on with Deepfence?
Well, absolutely, Blake. Okay. We've got a lot of giveaways at the booth. We've got the demos of the commercial offering as well as the freemium offering. People are lining up. So excited to be here.
Any other thoughts on just KubeCon in general?
Well, I think this is our first event this year. In person.
In person.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally different.
And we're super thrilled to be here. We're seeing a lot of people. I think people are coming out and see a lot of energy. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cool to be back here in
Yeah,
person where the kind of the industry this wants it this way, which is interesting because people say, hey, everybody's so introverted. Why does everybody want to meet in person? But
yeah,
this is what they do and love. So of
yeah.
course it makes sense.
Absolutely. We're not pixels, we're real people, and we're getting to see real people here. So yeah, awesome.
Very cool. And last question for you.
Mhm.
Anything else upcoming, like events you're going to be at or anything else upcoming? Are you on Twitter? Can people follow
Well,
you?
absolutely. We
Okay.
are on Twitter at Defense.
Okay.
Very straightforward. We have a Slack and community channel for our ThreatMapper offering.
Nice.
Do join us. It's open source. It's Apache V2. It's on GitHub. Yeah.
So for ThreatMapper, just being like open source as well. So as you heard it here, they've got their own community in Slack because there's nothing worse than getting something open source and there's like a getting started guide and
Yeah.
nothing else. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
definitely take advantage of checking it out, joining their Slack, stopping by their booth at KubeCon. There's some cool things that
Yep.
they can do. We'll post a link out to the ThreatMapper release and information. So shift left and secure right. And thank you
Absolutely.
so
With
much for joining
defense.
us.
Thank you so much, Blake. Thank you.
Awesome.